Hi everyone, I'm Hannah Rudman. I run Rudman Consulting and a company called Enviro Digital. But Roger's asked me to talk to you today as lead of Ambition. Ambition is a UK-based project that is helping the UK's arts and cultural sector get digital. We've been working with arts organisations to help them raise their technology base across their artistic, their operational and their business model functions too. Roger particularly wanted me to have a few thoughts today about user-generated content and the idea of audiences wanting to participate with arts organisations and how arts organisations should be responding to that. So from the lessons that we've learnt in the project and from some of the new content that's emerging in the UK, I want to tell you a few stories about that. First of all, I wanted to just talk a little bit about why we find ourselves here, talking about how we deal with user-generated content. Obviously, business has changed as we've seen the impact of technology on our world. We're well aware of the kind of socio and economic changes that this presents us with. But I also think we have changed culturally. So our cultural behaviour has changed. Our audiences have changed. They've evolved. And it's this evolution of our audience that I think the arts and cultural sector is struggling with a little bit at the moment. That's fine. The changes have only just recently come upon us. So it's fine that we're still finding our way through this. I wanted to share with you a quote from a guy called Charles Ledbetter. Charles Ledbetter used to be a government advisor over here. He's now a leading thinker and author. And in his work, We Think, he said the following. He says, "My argument is that these new forms of mass creative collaboration announce the arrival of a society in which participation will be the key organising idea, rather than consumption and work. People want to be players, not just spectators, part of the action, not on the sidelines." So that's really recognising that audiences are wanting to engage with us, and that's because they can be creative and they've been given permission to be creative. Another quote from Bernard Stiegler, who's the director of the Pompidou Centre, said that we're seeing a renaissance of the amateur. And I've been thinking about what the term renaissance of the amateur might mean, particularly for the cultural sector. And I think he probably means that the culture surrounding arts audiences has changed. Prior to the 20th century, arts audiences were active, they were critical, they were engaged, they were vocal. Amateurs were involved in the process of creating art. The 20th century came upon us and we witnessed a sacralisation of the arts, a professionalisation of the arts. Audiences were effectively silenced. They were expected to act with restraint, decorum. They were expected to sit in darkened auditoria whilst the work was put on the stage in front of them. The only people who were allowed to make comments were the experts, the critics, the professionals. And I think the 21st century, where we're seeing ourselves now, is a reactionary move back. So we're sort of seeing this rise of the participative amateur, this renaissance of the amateur. I think we're actually lucky that the general public's logic tells them that the first place they should come for a creative cultural experience is the cultural sector. But this massively creative society now expects to participate. So what do they get when they come to us, this first place where they're looking for this creative experience? Do they get a participative experience? There are some organisations who are beginning to think about how they change their outputs in order to achieve this, and I'll talk to you a little bit about those now. Over in the States, a few of the examples that I've been showing colleagues over here in the UK have been MoMA, San Francisco MoMA actually specifically. For a few years now, they've been asking audiences to create their own podcasts of their version of the curation of the exhibition. Brooklyn Museum similarly have been crowdsourcing curation for exhibitions. I think they give about 8 weeks of their year to crowdsourced curation. Other organisations over here are beginning to change the way that they make work, change their artistic outputs. Tate in particular have been working with audiences to co-create work. They put on an exhibition a couple of years ago called Here We Are Now, and that was crowdsourced through Flickr, and it complemented their Here We Are exhibition, which was curated by them. So they curated one exhibition, then they crowdsourced all these pieces of work, which were beautiful photos that people had taken to reflect how we see ourselves now. Other organisations like theatre companies are also co-creating work with audiences. Pilot Theatre, for example, co-created a piece of work using MySpace as the platform. They have audiences mainly of young people, and they use the MySpace platform to crowdsource parts of the script, crowdsource the music, and then they pulled together that production actually in Second Life, so you could do all of that virtually. There's been projects emerging this year in Edinburgh. There was a literary twestival that was obviously crowdsourced literature in 140 characters, but that was pulled together through Twitter with audiences. The Royal Opera House in London is just about to actually, I think they've just performed an opera where the libretto was pulled together from tweets. So over the last couple of months, they have been asking people to send tweets that is the next part of the libretto. We have seen organisations emerge like Hide and Seek. Hide and Seek are a company who use a Facebook community and a wiki to pull together audiences and artists to make work. And we have seen organisations like National Theatre of Wales, who I've been working closely with, actually completely turn on its head the way a theatre makes work. So the new National Theatre of Wales hasn't launched its programme yet, but it's been working with a community online through a Ning platform for the past 6 months to bring together artists and audiences and to make work collaboratively through offering some of those choices back out to the audience. I guess that just reflects what we're seeing in the film sector. So in the UK, we've had movies like Faint Heart and I Spit on Your Rave, both bad B movies. I Spit on Your Rave, particularly bad zombie movie. But interesting in their methods of production. So I Spit on Your Rave was recorded at the Big Chill Music Festival, and all those music fans going along to the festival were asked to take a zombie outfit as well. And then there was filming done at the festival. And Faint Heart, similarly to the Pilot Theatre experience, used MySpace to pull together script and for all the decisions around casting and directing to be made by that crowd of audience members who were then kind of responsible for helping make some of those choices. We're seeing different forms of engagement with culture. and I've just talked a little bit about the movie industry, but let's think about the games industry as well. We're seeing games like Spore and Little Big Planet emerge. And this is just those companies like Sony going, actually, maybe we don't have the best ideas coming from the people who work for us. Maybe the best ideas might come from outside. And a few businesses have taken that on as a method of bringing in R&D ideas that otherwise they wouldn't have, bringing in innovation that otherwise they wouldn't have. Dell, for example, have done that through their project Idea Storm. I guess what I see in those changing artistic outputs isn't a letting go of control, and I suppose that's where quite a lot of the worry for arts organisations comes in. They're used to being the gatekeepers of culture, they're used to being the gatekeepers of the quality of culture, and that's still the job of the arts organisation. But when it's co-production rather than letting go of control, then I think everybody has a much clearer understanding of expectations and what the boundaries are for both parties as well. So you're still offering that opportunity for audiences to be able to participate and bring their own content to you, but you've also set out the boundaries of how that might work, so that the end artistic product still has the quality and the aesthetics that you're proud of. So challenges for arts organisations are understanding that co-production relationship. What are the other challenges? Roger asked me to talk a little bit about that to you as well. I think another challenge is that actually our live audiences are also changing. We have expected them in the past to single task with us. They just pay attention, watch what we put on stage. Now, I think in real life, people multitask a lot more. Their virtual lives are becoming part of their real lives. There's less boundaries there now. So I have a colleague who likes to call that continuous partial attention. But one of our ambition organisations, Oldham Coliseum, a regional repertory theatre, fairly staid theatre, audience members, probably average age of 50, they're just about to put on stage a project that's been created by their new DigiLab, and the DigiLab is a kind of R&D youth theatre company. And they've used Facebook and Twitter to pull that performance together. There's all sorts of technology actually happening in the performance, and it's going to be streamed as well across the globe. But there's also going to be the tweet seat in the auditorium where people will be invited to come in and watch the show live, but then also Twitter live and have that interaction with the virtual audience as well. So the challenges for arts organisations really are about accepting those changes in behaviour, those evolutions in behaviour that we're seeing with our audiences. That might mean changing the way that we allow audiences to behave in our venues, but it certainly is about changing our thinking about how arts organisations and audiences come together to co-produce work. One of the key survival features for us then is the notion of porosity. And being porous is hard for cultural organisations. But the rise of the amateur, this increased desire that we're seeing from people to want to participate, does mean that we have to be more porous. Marcus Romer, the artistic director of Pilot Theatre, has said that he has had to get himself to the position where he recognises that he isn't the expert at everything and that he doesn't understand it all the best. And he feels that the core of his job has changed as he's invited collaborators and partners and the general public in to negotiate with and influence Pilot's work. And he's said that for him, the idea of cultural provision has become a bit of a misnomer. He thinks that audiences intuitively know that culture's not something that can be provided by arts organisations. It's something that describes what we generate together with audiences, with society. And so it's characterised by the many different interests and multiple backgrounds of the people in that society. I think that's a really interesting thought. He would now describe his artistic policy as open source. And I think that, again, just to reiterate, that's not about letting go of control. It's about setting really clear boundaries around that co-creation, co-production relationship. But being porous does demand change at the heart of an organisation. It's about the artistic director, the chief exec, the curator, the programmer, admitting that they don't understand everything and that there might be some brilliant ideas that come from outside. And that's a really profound discussion for arts organisations to have. But I think that, we have to admit that we're in this evolving landscape. And that the idea of amateur activity has to come back onto our radar. So we've got evolved audiences. Let's not be dinosaurs. Let's think about how we can evolve as arts organisations in relation to this. I'd be thrilled to continue the discussion with you. And I know that Roger will think a bit more about how we can do that. But I hope my thoughts have been of interest to you today. If you want to follow any of those examples that I've given, I have put together some delicious bookmarks. So go to delicious.com/Han_Rudman/UGC. You can email me directly on hannah@consultrudman.com, and you can follow me on Twitter @HannahRudman. Thanks a lot for your time.